1. Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting of January 29th, 2024. I would call this meeting to order and ask that you rise and join us for the national anthem. Thank you.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country and to our very own Tennille Towns for the singing of our national anthem. I will now move to our land acknowledgement. If you give me an opportunity. There we go. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver, Cree, Dene, and Métis people as the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island and acknowledge that these lands have been home to diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. Thank you for that opportunity. And now we'll look to an adoption of the previous council minutes. And before we get started on that, I just wanted to recognize for those who are in the chambers that Councillor Thiessen is joining us online today, and Councillor Bressy will be joining us shortly. Recognizing Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move that Council adopt the minutes of City Council meeting held January 15th as presented.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue with issues of errors or omissions, I'll call the question. Please vote.
Councillor Blackmore in favour.
Councillor Blackmore is in favour. And that carries unanimously. Now move to the adoption of today's agenda. Recognize Councillor O'Toole.
I move that Council adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Toole. That motion is in order. I'll call the question.
Councillor Blackmore in favour.
Councillor Thiessen in favour.
Councillor Plott in favour. It's not coming up.
Councillor O'Connor in favour.
And Councillor Berg in favour.
So I just, before we call the question, the motion should be Councillor O'Toole as amended. So there was an addition of item 7.3, the public member appointment. So if you are okay at that friendly amendment, so it would be as amended with the addition of item 7.3.
I'm okay with that amendment.
All right, now we'll call the question. Go ahead, Councillor Blackmore.
Still in favour.
And that too carries unanimously. I did also fail to mention that I will be leaving at 3:50 today, and so will Councillor O'Connor, as we have been invited to attend the installation of the new president for Northwest Polytech. So we will be stepping out at 3:50. Moving on to delegations, item number 6 today. If you're not aware, if you're watching online, delegations can come speak to council at either 3 p.m. and if we're having an evening session, 6 p.m. is an option. We just ask that you simply fill out a form ahead of time. The form is online. And today we've had 3 individuals let us know that they would like to speak to council. First one identified, Ms. Susan Schneider. If you'd like to come up to the table. And we'll move the microphone to get you situated. Welcome. I know you've been here before, but once you have a chance to get situated, if you could just introduce yourself for those who are watching at home. And your presenter mic is on. If you wouldn't mind just pulling the mic a little bit closer to Susan, that would be great. There we go. Welcome.
Can you put the first picture, the one in your left hand, on the X?
So to your left, sorry, sir, to your left, there's an X there. There we go. And we will zoom in on that.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Susan Schneider. I'm here to speak about the new practice, cricket pitch and batting cage at Head and Salmon Park. I was a delegate last July. I spoke on behalf of myself and my neighbors about the new cricket pitch. We felt that it should never have been built in its current location. We asked to have the pitch moved. Instead, Council unanimously agreed to administration's recommendation to install a $6,000 fence beside the playground. I don't approve of the entire situation. The location of the practice pitch is not safe at all. I feel that the fence idea is a complete waste of money and would just be another eyesore in the park. It may protect the playground area, but would not protect the other users of the park. Cricket players practice every evening and on weekends, which is the busiest time in the park. The walking path is very busy and picnic tables are full. Families have lunches, suppers, birthday parties on the tables, and the children play in the playground area. This would not be protected. I really feel it's kind of ridiculous that a pitch was put in an area that faces a playground, picnic tables, and a large walking path with no protection, and the fence wouldn't protect all those areas. Hudson, next picture. That one. Yes. The new pitch is extremely noisy since it's directly behind our homes. I hear the bat hitting the ball constantly, one after the other, with the cage rattling every time the ball hits metal, as well as a crowd of people yelling and cheering every evening. Last summer, with windows open, was terrible, and I didn't really get to enjoy my deck or yard because of constant noise. The City Development Authority states or looks at the impact on properties in the vicinity of nuisance factors, smoke, odors, and noise. This pitch is a nuisance factor with excess noise for our homes. Hudson, can you flip page? And next picture, please. Yep. The park is huge and there's plenty of space. I was told that with the area being a storm pound, the locations were limited. Well, if the storm pound is an issue, then the main pitch should have never been installed there then. Having the main pitch there is kind of setting a precedent that the practice pitch should be there also, just a little further south, where there's no homes or people to worry about. The location of the practice pitch has ruined the aesthetics of our backyards. When we purchased our homes, there was a nice green space behind them, but now it's an ugly batting cage to look at. The pitch is noisy, ruins our view, and devalued our homes. It is very frustrating to me that the issues with this practice pitch could have been avoided if homeowners were consulted beforehand. Katie Beiderdorf admitted to me, we do recognize that informing the neighborhood residents directly was a missed opportunity. Obviously, we should have been notified and asked for our input. We know the park best. I do get along well with the Cricket Association and understand their desire for a practice pitch. However, I do not approve of the location. For the above reasons, I would like to ask Council to reconsider installing an ugly fence along the playground and instead use the $6,000 to move the practice pitch to the south end of the park away from homes and people. Thank you. Questions, please.
Opportunity for council to ask questions. Recognizing Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you very much for coming in, and I'm quite aware. I went to the site and took a look. I dropped my cards off to have people contact me. I did have one gentleman talk to me. And so how noisy is this? I know I heard it's between 6 and night. How noisy is it?
Okay. They practice most of the time between 6 and 8:30 every single evening, as well as Saturday and Sunday from about 3 till about 8:30. And that's when people want to be out in your backyard and be in the park. It's noisy. Windows are open. It's like a baseball, same thing. And it's with the practice pitch, there's one player in the cage, so a metal cage, and there can be up to 10 guys throwing the ball one after the other, so hitting it. So it's constant thud, thud, thud. And every time there's cheering, and if it accidentally hits and goes up into the cage, that metal rattles. So it's really annoying. And there have been many times that they do practice on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 8 o'clock in the morning. So it can be any time, really. It is really annoying that it's so close. I'll explain a little bit more. The main pitch, if you look on the picture, the overhead satellite, the main pitch is in the center of the park. There's a lot of room between both east and west sides of the homes. So it's far enough away. We hear a distant noise, but it's not bothering. This pitch, if you see the pink outline, is right behind our backyards. Like it's right there. Thank you.
I've also would like to ask if the balls, I've heard that the balls get out of the cage sometimes and come into the yard. Is that true?
That's true. When they throw them, there's such force, sometimes it goes right over the cage and it goes right into the backyards, yes.
Okay. And I've also heard there's a neighbor across the street. If you want to put that map up again.
It's still there?
Yeah, just show it on the screen.
No, you're good.
I've been told, but I don't have proof of this yet, but if you look where the 121st Avenue is, I've heard balls have gone across and went into one of the ladies' yard, but I don't know which property. Is that true?
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll come back to you if you have more.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Thank you for coming, Ms. Schneider. My question to you is, if that pitch was moved to the south side, as you recommended, the nuisance, the aesthetics, and the noise would be a non-issue?
I feel so. Like I said, the main pitch is already there. The main pitch is right in the middle. If you could please bring up the satellite image again. The main pitch is in the middle of the park. If you put the practice one further south, there's no homes. The ball would go away from the walking path. We wouldn't need an ugly fence. And the fence would not cover, I guess I should say, the top part, the north end of the park, should be for the public. There's playground, picnic tables, walking path. The southernmost end of the park is for cricket. They have a shelter there. There's a little building. They have the main pitch, and further south would be the practice pitch. And it would shoot to the east. There are houses, but they're higher up. There's a grass berm there. There's no way they would be in any yards, and the noise would be a lot quieter for us. Yeah.
My further questions will be to administration. Thank you.
Further questions for the delegations? Seeing none, I thank you for coming today. And as you are aware, our delegation business is dealt with at the end of the meeting. So
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Okay, bundle up, Hudson. Thank you for your time.
As I mentioned, there are 2 other delegations that let us know ahead of time that they were coming to speak to council today. The second one, item 6.2, Mr. Ken Westgarde. When you have a moment, Mr. Westgarde, if you could come up. Once you're set up, if you could just introduce yourself for those who are watching online and take 5 minutes to address council, and council may have some questions when you're done. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for seeing us. My name's Ken Westgarde. I'm one of the neighbors. I'm directly beside Susan in the park in Salmon Head Park. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. Yeah. Anyways. So to get started, I better put my glasses on. Last year I was home in the afternoon, and I noticed a group of people in our backyard discussing something. Now the window was open, so I could hear what was being said. Shows you how close they are. And when it was clear, although I didn't know exactly what they were discussing, it was clear they were talking about building something. At one point, someone made references to the house behind being in close proximity. Someone made the comment in that group, I'm not sure because I don't know who they were, that the trees would grow bigger. And it received a laugh from others. Now I tell you this because this is the callousness in which we've been treated right from the beginning with regards to this batting cage. I was shocked and still cannot believe that council allowed this to be given in the place that it is, given the fact that there's other places to put it right within the park. The decision to allow this in this location had little or no regard for the negative impact it would have on the people who live here or others who use the park. I just want to bring attention to a bylaw, Bylaw C-1103. And under general prohibition, it states, except to the extent permitted by this bylaw, no person shall make, continue, cause, or allow to be made or continued any unreasonably loud, raucous, or unusual noise, which a noise disturbs, injures, endangers, or detracts from the comfort, repose, health, peace, and safety of any other person of ordinary sensitivity in the city. It goes on to say, no person shall permit, suffer, or allow real or personal property which he owns, occupies, or controls to be used in a manner that there are emanates therefrom any unreasonably loud, raucous, or unusual noise which annoys, disturbs, injures, endangers, or detracts from the comfort, repose, health, peace, or safety of any other person of ordinary sensitivity within the city. One more thing I'll mention. It says factors for determining whether a sound is unreasonably loud, raucous, or unusual include, but are not limited to, proximity of the sound to sleeping facilities, whether residential or commercial. C, the duration and the volume of the sound. And D, whether the sound is reoccurrent, intermittent, or constant. The constant noise of the bat hitting the ball, cheering, sometimes 7 days a week, several hours into the evening, roughly 30 yards behind our house. And because of the close proximity, it may detract from the property value. The negative impact of the appearance of this park. The direct line from the batting cage to the playground poses risk of injury. The closeness of the walking path poses risk to injury. The closeness of the street poses risk to damage and property and injury. the closeness to the field drain, which allows water to pool behind it right now. They did put a small ditch around it, but it doesn't seem to work. These factors contravene this bylaw. Now I hear the city is planning to put up a fence near the playground at the end of this park to help mitigate the risk. If this is the case, then this is absolute proof that the location was a bad one to start. And it adds another fixture that has a negative impact on the appearance of the park. I've been talking with several other neighbors and users of the park, and not one of them that I spoke to thought it was a good location. The one across the street has found cricket balls in her backyard, and they have a fence. When they play cricket in the middle of the field, the sounds are negligible, minimal, and the risks are minimal. The only reason I can see that they put this here was the close proximity to where you park your car. They would not have to walk another 100 yards down the field. Engineers make mistakes, as we all do, especially if certain factors are ignored, as we've discussed today. Respectively, we're demanding that the rights not be violated here, our rights, by not allowing this batting cage to continue in this area. Removing the concrete, and this can be done. I'm in construction, I've been in construction my whole life. Driveways get removed every year here, and it's not as big a deal as it may seem. And certainly not to build a fence that covers up a bad decision in the first place. Imagine coming home from work after a hard day, sitting down to relax, and all you hear is smack, 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 smack.
Sorry, sir, your time's almost up, so.
You get the point. Hours at a time, days at a time, something. No ordinary person, including this council, would not want to live in those conditions. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Questions for the delegation? Recognizing Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just in one of the diagram that was up, it looked like about maybe 100-ish feet or so from the back of a deck to the pitch currently now. If it was 200 feet, would that? I'm just curious on the noise. Like, we're talking about, the other proponent has to move it. Is another 100 feet going to make a big enough difference, or?
Another 100, well, probably would, but you can't move it another 100 feet, or you're 100 feet closer to the playground.
No, I'm sorry. I'm meaning even if it was 100 feet to the south, or 100.
Can't go 100 feet to the south because it's just, if it's going to move, it has to move pretty much all the way to the back end of the field, which is where it should have been in the first place.
Okay. No, thanks for that.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate you coming in. I've taken a look at the site, and I concur that the very south end of the property, close to Ideal Tile, would be a lot better location, and I can't imagine what it'd be like. So have you witnessed the ball going into
Yes.
the playground?
Yes, I have. Several times.
Yeah.
I walk there all the time, and I see it every day. Several times. There's balls in that field. If you walk that, sometimes you will find balls all over that field. Not just, ideally, not just from their practice pitch. I call it a batting cage because that's what it is. But they're everywhere. And yeah, it's a matter of time. It's going to end up on somebody's nose or somebody's car window. I'm surprised it hasn't already.
Have you gotten any balls in your yard?
No, I have not. Not being directly behind because inside the cage. I've seen them on the ground outside our yard, like outside the fence.
Okay. And is the crashing of the ball to the cage as the other lady presented, is that a concern? And
It's a huge concern. It's steady, steady. Like I said, it was demonstrating. It's steady at times. It's loud enough, it's just annoying. And that clearly that's not, it shouldn't, if it was at the other end of the park, this would never have been an issue. And there'd be no need for a fence. that's the part it just astounds me that I couldn't believe it when I seen this. Terrible location, terrible.
Okay, thanks for bringing the C1103 to us. We'll take a look at that.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor O'Connor, and thanks for coming here today. Appreciate your time. The next delegation on our agenda for today, item 6.3, Mr. Colin Woodcock. Welcome. As with the other delegations, once you get situated, if you could please introduce yourself for those who are watching at home and take 5 minutes where council may ask some questions following. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Colin Woodcock. I am the neighbor with the cricket balls in his backyard. And yeah, it was the new practice pitch was built and we had to deal with it all summer last year. And it's perpetual, the noise. And like Ken and Susan have said, they pretty much said all the details, but I have noise canceling headphones and they're not enough to keep the sound out. It takes the edge off, but I can't even hang out in my backyard because of the noise. I would rather leave. So, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say other than it's noisy, and it's pretty obvious why they put the practice pitch where they did, because it's nice and close to the parking lot. These people are there for, exercise. I think they can walk a little bit further. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions for the delegation? Seeing no one in the queue, thank you for coming today. As I mentioned, delegation business is dealt with at the end of our meeting. So we're moving on to item number 7, reports. Item 7.1 is utility bylaw amendment C-1365D. I'll look to administration for introduction. Mr. Glavin, if you could introduce this first. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. We have today updates to the utility bylaw as requested from Aquaterra. This is something we do on a regular basis, or is requested on a regular basis, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Barrett to make the presentation.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So before you today is the report on utility bylaw C-1365 amendments as proposed by Aquaterra based on their 2024 business plan. For city residents, the proposed rate increases include 7.1% to water, 6.7% to wastewater, and 8.6% to solid waste beginning March 1st. The average residential customer would see an increase of $9.52 per month. Aquaterra is also requesting the removal of Section 2 as outlined in Schedule E, being the landfill tipping fees. The proposed amendment would allow Aquaterra the ability to adjust fees in commercial terms, which they have indicated is necessary to respond to competitive forces in the market. It is recommended Council give 3 readings to bylaw C-1365, being an amendment to the utility bylaw. And we also have representatives from Aquaterra here today, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. So thanks for the introduction and the staff report. I will now open it up for questions for administration. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for coming in with the reports. Just a couple questions for me. I'm just curious. I know when Aquaterra does their benchmarking, they look at other municipalities. So I'm just wondering, with this increase, where does that put Grande Prairie stacking up in Alberta with your other mid-sized cities and for this type of service?
Sorry. Mr. Glavin?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. We'll invite up Mr. Bend in order to answer some of these questions.
Welcome. When you get a moment, just situated, that would be great.
So my name is Vaughn Bend. I'm the CEO of Aquaterra, and thank you for your time. Thank you. So I can address that question, Councillor. So where we are, we benchmark regularly, obviously, is with other similar type of municipalities for similar services. And with this latest increase, it puts us essentially right at the median of those other municipalities. So we're almost bang right in the middle.
Okay. have
Go ahead.
one, Council? Mayor Clayton. I'm just seeing as some of the fixed rate increase that's going to happen on an average bill, is any of that going back into capital for replacement or just kind of general revenue?
It's so our rates are broken down. The rate structure is we generally what we do is any utility will calculate a revenue requirement, and then it rolls into a rate structure. And in our case, our rate structure is based into a fixed and variable rate. And Aquaterra for years has been highly variably, probably 70% of our variable rates is where revenue comes from. And so what we've done is over the years, the fixed component has lagged behind. And so what the shift is meant to do is to actually reduce the risk as we're putting about $160 million into the system over the next 4 years. What it does is it kind of shaves off the peak highs and lows. So it shifts more into fixed and less into variable. So it's meant to ensure that the corporation has a base revenue coming in dependent on the variability of the consumption. And we believe that there's more than enough incentive in the consumption side to make sure that customers are conserving. So as we invest this type of money into the system, we need to shift, as do other utilities, a little bit more into fixed.
Okay. So if I'm understanding that it's revenue, but it will help some of the capital items moving forward?
Yes, of course it will, yeah.
I have a couple of I'll pop out there. Thanks, Mayor Clayton.
Okay. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. That basically was my question about I do understand that you have infrastructure upgrades that you are looking at for 2024, 2025, and 2026, I believe.
Yeah, we have a fairly heavy capital cycle for the next 5 years. And, some of this stuff we've deferred since 2018. And we deferred more stuff out into the beyond 2028 to try to manage the impact to ratepayers. But yeah, it's a very heavy cycle for us.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Plott.
That was a short queue. Just a couple more. Just wondering, was there any impacts or any changes to infrastructure fees or hookup fees today, or is that a separate?
No, so we haven't, and as we've discussed in the past, infrastructure fees are meant to offset a part of the capital build out for new growth. And it's about 25% across the board, across all shareholders. And so what we've looked at is we've looked at kind of comparably across other jurisdictions. We're about the same or less in that space as far as the impact on essentially the development industry and getting new people into the area. So, but what we have looked at the request of the city and other shareholders are looking at implementing a change in the lower end around multifamilies. So we basically took that to our board of directors in our last meeting, and we're about to communicate that to shareholders. So really trying to support the affordability challenges we've got in the region and across the province.
Just one last one, sorry. Can you give me kind of a sense of scale with this? There's a 25% franchise fee recovery increase. How much would that change your revenue for the shareholders? That might be a pretty...
Yeah, so it's not a lot. It probably works, it's relative. Overall, it's about $120,000 annually.
Okay, thanks for that.
All right. I see no further questions for the presenters. So seeing none, thank you for your presentation today. I'm looking for business that may be arising. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, Mayor Clayton, I'd like to move that Council give first reading to Bylaw C 1365D, being an amendment to the utility bylaw.
All right, that motion is in order. No discussion or debate on first reading, so I'll call the question.
Councillor Blackmore in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I'd like to have Council give second reading to Bylaw C 1365D.
All right, so this is second reading, opportunity for discussion or debate. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question on second reading of Bylaw C-1365D.
Councillor Blackmore in favor.
Excuse me. That carries unanimously. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I'd love to have council have third reading of Bylaw C 1365D at this meeting.
So this motion is to have third reading here today. In order for us to have third reading here today, it must pass unanimously. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question.
Councillor Blackmore in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to have council give third reading to Bylaw C 1365D, being an amendment to the utility bylaw.
That motion is in order. Opportunity for discussion or debate. Recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I figure somebody should maybe speak to it, and to speak to me, sure don't get into council because you want to increase utility fees for people and you don't enjoy paying them as a resident yourself. That being said, water really isn't vital infrastructure for us. This is something that we really do depend on for both life and for business as well. And the way that our shareholder agreement works with Aquaterra is if council's not going to approve these fees, then we have to figure out how to make up for the price difference out of tax revenue. And for me, I really do think that user pays for things is often a better way for us to generate revenue than tax revenue. So I'd hate to see subsidize it with tax revenue. I'd also highlight that especially right now under new provincial funding rules, the local government fiscal framework, most of the municipalities in Alberta are getting provincial funding for their water, wastewater. We're one of 5 municipalities right now that is not getting any funding for our water, wastewater infrastructure. I'm optimistic that that could be changed in the next month or two. I really think that we're having productive conversations about that. And I know other municipalities and AB Munis is having productive conversations about that too. But we don't know if that change that should be made is going to be made. And so for that reason, I wouldn't support right now giving up putting more tax revenue towards water, wastewater than we have to. And so for me, it's sure not a bylaw I enjoy passing, but I think it is one that is prudent to pass.
Thanks for your comments. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll call the question.
Councillor Blackmore in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Thank you for that. Moving on to item 7.2. So if council recalls, about 3 years ago, we started negotiations with the County of Grande Prairie as a municipal partner who we were legislated to work into a intermunicipal collaboration framework with. This agreement has a lifespan, and currently there is a negotiation, or rather discussions that need to start with our county colleagues in regards to either new framework or an updated framework. And with that, there are opportunities for us to have conversations with our rural partners, but there is a facilitator required for these conversations. So you will see in your package, there's a suggested agenda in regards to a submission that we will, in partnership with the County of Grande Prairie, submit an application to the Alberta Community Partnership in regards to mediation and cooperative process grant application. So the ACP granting money, which would have a requirement for each the city and the county fund up to $25,000. So I will open this up for questions that you may have for administration, and then I will look for business arising. Councillor O'Connor. You're still in the queue. Yes, you are. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm happy to do the business whenever. That's
perfect. If you want to do that, and then we can...
I move that council support the submission of Alberta Community Partnership Mediation and Cooperative Process Grant application in partnership with the County of Grande Prairie, with the county being the managing partner, to fund the facilitating services for the intermunicipal collaboration framework negotiations of the replacement cost sharing information sharing agreement, and the city's matching share of up to $25,000 be funded from, and I'm just realizing there is no recommended source. Would you like me to make up?
Mr. Burke, or the CFO.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Management's confident that we could manage this throughout our operating budget as it exists now.
So should I say
end your motion at 25,000? Sure. I think that's fair.
Sure. And yeah, just to speak to this, there's both upside to making this investment and downside to not doing it. I'll talk about the downside first. If an ICF with the county is something that is legislated by the province for us to renegotiate eventually, and if we don't invest in being proactive and doing it well right from the start, there's a big downside of legal costs and arbitration costs that some municipalities are having to face right now. More important to me, though, is the upside of this. I really think that our past ICF has been really good for our region. I think that we've got really, really good work going on with our county partners right now in ways that I sure haven't seen since I started paying attention to local politics. And I think there's many reasons for that, but one of them was the successful signing of an ICF. And so to do this process well really does pay dividends to our residents and county residents. And therefore, I think this is a relationship that's worth investing in. So I hope that council will support this.
Councillor Blackmore.
Yes, I have a question for administration now. When we entered the negotiation process for the ICF before, so for our current agreement, there was insufficient data in many areas, and we made a commitment to make sure we gathered that information in the interim. So I'm wondering how that process is going and if our administration feels more confident with the data they have now. And I don't know who would answer that.
Sure. Happy to ask Mr. Tarrant to put some comments in, and as well, if there's anything else I can add as well.
Thank you. And through the chair, we, the city and the county, engaged a consultant through this process to help us with some of the data collection. And we have been delivered committee, the ICC committee, saw the final report at the past committee meeting. And we feel we're in a significantly better spot than we were before in terms of the breadth and depth of the data that we have, as well as the compatibility of our data with the county data. There was a number of facilities that the county did not have anything before, and they've made efforts to collect that, as well as the city. There was a number of facilities that we had no user data on in terms of residency location, and we've made efforts to fill those gaps, and so we feel we will be much better served going into this next round of negotiations.
Okay, that's good news. Thank you very much.
Seeing no further questions, I'll call the question on the motion.
Councillor Blackmore in favour.
Councillor Plott in favour.
That carries unanimously. Moving now to item 7.3, public member appointment. This is an appointment to the Youth Advisory Council. If you recall from our most recent organizational committee meeting, there were members appointed. Since then, we had a youth come forward who was interested in being part of the Youth Advisory Committee. This went through an application process. It is in front of council today for consideration, recognizing Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would like to move council appoint Chelsea Merriman to the Youth Advisory Council. Looking at her credentials, I was quite impressed. Outstanding young citizen that I think will add a lot to the Youth Advisory Council, and just love to see that the youth in our city are stepping forward. And when I read these resumes, I can honestly see in the future many of these people being civic leaders here in our city.
Thank you for that motion. It is in order. I will call the question.
Councillor Blackmore in favour.
That carries unanimously. I will now, I'm going to excuse myself. I'll ask Deputy Mayor Councillor Blackmore to come over to the chair's spot. So if you could just give us a couple of minutes to get reset up, that would be appreciated. And I will see you all shortly. Councillor O'Connor will be vacating with me as well. Thank you.
We're back, and Councillor Blackmore is chairing the meeting until Mayor Clayton is able to return. And I suspect we'll be done the meeting before then. We're going to move on to item 8, which is committee business. And we're going to start with 8.1, strategy and communication. And I'm not sure who chairs that committee.
Councillor Blackmore, that would be me.
Hey, let's proceed.
I'd like to start off with some business. I move that Council adopt the minutes of the Strategy and Communication Services Committee meeting held January 23rd as presented.
And that motion is in order. I'll call a question. And Councillor Blackmore is in favor. And that is carried. You have a motion and some business coming out of your meeting, Councillor O'Toole, if you can continue.
Yes, exactly. Corporate sponsorship, we've rejigged everything and it's make it up. We got rid of some stuff that wasn't necessarily current, and we've got a number of, well, I got one motion, but it's about 9 or 10 items there, so I'll cover that. I move that Council approve policy 129, corporate sponsorship. Also rescind policy 112, corporate sponsorship. Rescind policy 111, souvenirs. Consolidate the individual project, scholarship, major project arts and culture grant programs to one community microgrant program, and transfer existing fund allegations retroactive to January 1st, 2024 as follows. $100,000 from large-scale tourism events budget to Council Public Relations budget. $5,000 from the Corporate Sponsorship Fund to Council's Public Relations budget. $10,000 from the Corporate Sponsorship Fund to the Community Microgrant budget. $7,000 from the Arts and Culture Individual Projects and Scholarship Fund to the Community Microgrant budget. And last, $3,000 from the Major Project Funding to the Community Microgrant budget. And that's it.
Well, thank you, Councillor O'Toole. We have 3 people in the queue right now. We'll start with Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blackmore. I do have a couple questions. Depending on how those go, I might have some amendments that I move in a bit. But first two questions I want to ask, and then I'll get it back in the queue, is about the large-scale tourism events budget. Could administration remind us what that budget is currently at?
Yes, Mr. Tarrant.
Thank you, through the chair. So it is currently at 200,000.
And then I'm just trying to figure out with this change, is there going to traditional events that are established events? I'm thinking of things like Stampede, the Bear Creek Folk Festival, events that that have been receiving tourism event funding. Is the intention to, if they apply for tourism event funding, is the intention to redirect them to this budget, or is it to leave them in the large-scale tourism event funding stream, or will that be up to them to decide where they apply?
Go ahead, Mr. Tarrant.
Thank you, through the chair. So currently within the large-scale tourism program guidelines, there is a preference to events that are within the first 5 years of their formation. So as you said, there are a number of organizations and events that have extended past that 5 year, and the recommendation from administration is that those ones that have extended beyond the 5 years, that council would have a chance to sponsor them throughout through the sponsorship fund.
And we'll move on to Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot to unravel here, so I'll keep it to a couple of points. To the positive, I really appreciate moving to sponsorships versus grants. I feel with many events that we grant money to, we don't get the proper recognition for it, whereas a sponsorship, we will get the recognition for it. And the citizens of Grande Prairie will see that we are contributing to it as opposed to their money not visible, so to speak. One of the things that I did have a little bit of concern with, and I didn't necessarily flag exactly where it's at, but was around, I believe it was large-scale tourism. And one of the lines said something along the lines that events 5 years and older would be given preferential treatment, which is the exact opposite of what the Alberta Foundation for the Arts does. So the Alberta Foundation for the Arts, when they give their grant money, they prefer to give the grants to fledgling organizations because what it does is it allows them to establish, and over the course of 5 years, it lets them build an audience, build sponsors, and build loyalty. And then typically after 5 years, they do stop because at that point they should have built that. So one of the ways that I interpret what I was reading last night was that the preference would be given to established events opposite of what the AFA does, and hopefully these events after 5 years are established, and I can even think of some here that would even have money in the bank. So I would actually just like that line stricken, and again, I didn't necessarily flag it, but I think what it should just simply do is based on its own merit as opposed to anybody receiving any preferential treatment.
Mr. Tarrant, do you have a response for that?
Through the chair, to clarify, the current large-scale tourism policy does give preference for the first 5 years funding. So that is currently in there. It is the recommendation that once it goes beyond the 5 years, that council would have an opportunity to decide whether they want to continue to sponsor through the sponsorship policy.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
And Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Lockmore. I'm just curious. I just want to go back to Councillor Bressy's. We're going to move 100,000 into the corporate sponsorship, but the other 100,000 is going to stay in the other fund for large-scale tourism events. Is that correct? So, administratively, is that just not creating extra? Like we're still keeping a whole group available for one funding stream for that event. So I'm just confused why we would just roll it all into this and just call them all corporate sponsorship funding of opportunities instead of leaving them 100-100. Can anybody speak to that? I'm just confused why we chose to leave it split like that.
We're going to get the city manager to respond to that.
There was a view from administration that that the large-scale tourism had a policy objective, and that really went to that seed funding for those first 5 years. As that funding wasn't fully utilized in previous years, the belief was to move that into this new sponsorship fund, which still gives control to council on particularly the larger ones, but it gives us some more flexibility without creating a brand new program. So there still was the policy objective of the large-scale tourism. We wanted to make sure that if this money was set aside, that we were actually using it for supporting community projects. This was a way to address that.
So if I'm hearing correctly, it was under-prescribed before, like this, we weren't fully prescribing it. Okay. Can I have another one too?
One more.
Okay. Is having $20,000 for microgrants, I guess for me, when I read that, I like the thought of it. Is that really going to move the needle? And administratively, is that enough money to really, I would like all these things, but I sometimes worry that we're $20,000, we spend $10,000 administratively to look after that. So how much work is going to be there to administer the $20,000 in the microgrants?
Through the chair, the microgrant program was specifically established to be quite low administratively. It will be a fairly simple application process, and there's not, the reporting requirements are not very significant. As you can see in the draft procedures there, there is not an expectation for a full report. They have to do just a simple provide some pictures or provide some documentation that where the funding was spent. So it's a fairly low administrative burden. If we feel based on some of the previous grant programs that we're pulling from, taking away, we feel that the $20,000 is sufficient to take care of some of the projects that were coming up through those programs, as well as to accommodate some of those smaller requests that were coming through the corporate sponsorship fund. Certainly, any new program, we'll see how well it does and evaluate in the future. But we feel at this point that is sufficient, especially given the maximum funding per organization of $1,500.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr.
Councillor Bressie is next in the queue.
Great, thank you. I had a question about these potential donations that councillors could make to events they attend. First of all, really love that. I think often we're at an event representing the city, and everybody knows we're there because we're a councillor, and other significant organizations there are donating something to the silent auction, and we're not because we don't have a good procedure to do that. And I don't think that makes the city and the residents of Grande Prairie look great. So really excited for this. Do have a question about how that would work though. Who would be the expectation of who gets credited if a councillor donates a gift? Would it show up as the councillor's name? Would it be the city of Grande Prairie? Would it be city council?
CAO Burke?
The current plan in our procedures would be that it would be the city of Grande Prairie. This would mean that there would be some coordination between the city manager and the mayor. I think would probably be the simplest process to coordinate that. Also to ensure that there weren't multiple requests for the same event. So I think this is the scale of this is something we can manage internally, but the intent at this point is to be recognizing the city of Grande Prairie.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So again, last night it was coincidence, I think, in many ways. I was reading two documents back to back. Coming up at 8.3.1, the Recreation and Culture Strategy. I found there was a lot of overlap between some of the changes that we're doing here around, again, public sculpture or around building culture. I see a lot of this in step with each other. Were the two documents considered at all, or were they considered independently?
Ms. Bieberdorf.
Thank you. Yeah, they were considered to be in alignment with each other. A big piece of the arts development one is reducing red tape, getting them through faster, which is certainly in alignment with the rec and culture strategy.
Wonderful. Perfect answer.
Next in the queue, Councillor Palat.
Thank you for that. Just was wondering, in the report, where do we track gift in kinds? I'm just still curious about where we track gift in kinds and all this, because we do still do a lot of sponsorship events outside of that. So I'm just wondering where those get tracked within these budgets, or if that's a whole nother line item.
Ms. Bieberdorf.
Thank you. I think we collected in a few different places depending on the department, but they all come together in a document for finance at the end of the year. So we track everything in a spreadsheet and then upload it for finance's review at the end of the year.
Okay, and so I just can't remember, does that come to council at some point just so we have a full understanding of just all the gift in kinds we are doing?
Ms. Whiteway.
Thank you, Chair Blackmore. So yes, beginning this year, you'll start to see them actually in our audited financial statements. It's become a requirement under public sector accounting standards. So previously, it would be brought forward on individual reports or with community group funding, but now it will be together in the financial statements.
Perfect, that's great. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blackmore. My question is just a clarification on what Councillor Bressie was talking about, whether it's sponsor gifts or baskets or whatever from per council. There's only 9 of us, and there is a mosaic of fabulous organizations in this city. So can you just let everybody know that that isn't the only piece of the puzzle for organizations receiving something from the city?
Through the chair, absolutely. So there the general sponsorship fund will fund a lot of different requests from organizations that might not go through a specific counselor and not be part of their specific, the two gifts that they can provide out. And so there will be table sponsorships or silent auction sponsors, or there's a variety of ways that we will sponsor through this program that would be significantly more than the gifts that are provided through the counselors.
Thank you. I have one more, if that's all right. Can you just outline for the gift in kind piece that these organizations who are looking for funding, we're going to have to physically ask on paper or online for the gift in kind pieces that they generally have received in the past?
Thank you, through the chair. So for gift in kind for groups that also receive cash funding through grants, we currently have a line on their community group funding application for that specifically, and then we're going to add it onto the festival funding, which came up at committee, and any other grants that might be relevant for gifting.
Awesome. It was more of a reminder for everybody out there because we did talk about that at committee. Thank you.
I see no one else in the queue, and I don't see anyone online. So I see Councillor Bressie changed his mind and is in the queue.
Thank you. I didn't change my mind, but I was waiting for questions to get asked before I moved on to an amendment I'd like to move. And I'm just going to make sure I pulled up the right section. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the right section again. I'm going to be looking at the corporate sponsorship policy. And I'm looking at section 3.6, and I'm gonna move that we amend this to we strike 5,000 and insert 10,000 to require council approval. Just speak to this. This is something that I think this policy says that decisions that get made by administration have to be done in consultation with the mayor. I trust our mayor and administration to be doing a good job of vetting things, making the right decisions of how smaller amounts of funding get allocated. If they ever run into a troubling issue where they don't know how to do it, they always can kick it back to council. But I don't think we need to be talking about every $5,000 sponsorship that comes this way. I think $10,000 is a number I'm more comfortable with us weighing into.
That motion is in order as an amendment. Councillor Plott, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, please. I'm just curious if administration would know about how many of these would we get a year, just so I kind of have an idea of if it went from 5 to 10,000, would that change it by 1 or 2 applications come to council, or how much of a difference would that make?
Go ahead, Mr. Tarrant.
Through the chair, so through the corporate sponsorship fund, we would get between 20 to 25 applications a year. Now, that fund was only a maximum of 2,000, so a lot of those will end up going through the community microgrant program, but a number of them will still continue to go through the sponsorship program. What this will give us the ability to do is to really seek out further sponsorships that are in alignment with council's strategic priorities, and look at events or look at different conferences that may be in alignment with what we're trying to achieve and council's trying to achieve, and specifically allocate those dollars. So we do anticipate there will be some requests that come in through there, but we also anticipate, and this is a bit of the change, we'll be doing a little bit more outreach looking for those sponsorship opportunities out there.
Okay, thanks for that.
We have no one else in the queue. The motion was in order, so I will call a question on the amendment. Councillor Blackmore is in favor. Councillor O'Toole, how do you vote? And Councillor Plott?
Should be coming up now.
In favor?
That's in favor.
And that motion does carry. So we will now vote on the motion as amended. You have another one? Okay.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor Blackmore. I'm going to be difficult today, I suppose.
Just my luck.
Shows up late and he wants to do all the business.
Don't tempt me to go pull out my Robert's Rules of Order and really create some dilemmas. But I'm looking at section 3.5. So it reads, sponsorships will not exceed $40,000 per organization per year. I'd move that we amend that to $50,000 per organization per year. And I suspect this one might be a bit more contentious. This is for me personally, I know some organizations that might be moved into the stream, and even $50,000 is probably a bit lower than I personally want to support them. I think $50,000 would be more reasonable for us to be able to consider. There's nothing. This is a level of sponsorship that would get council oversight and would be decisions. So this isn't saying we have to give any organization $50,000 per year, but when requests come to us, I'd love to be able to consider giving up to $50,000 per year without breaking our policy. So I hope council will support this amendment.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For me, I'm okay with the 40,000. I'd be fine sticking with us. It's coming to council either way. And if council deems it fit to be 50,000 or 75,000 or $6, it has to be over 10,000. That will come to council at that time. So I'm happy to leave it as it is. I don't think we need to change something that isn't going to change the relevancy of somebody applying.
I don't have anyone else in the queue. I do have a question. Okay, I do have a question first, though. That doesn't change the overall pot of money, correct? It still remains at the same amount. And Councillor Thiessen, you said? Oh, he popped up here. We have new equipment here that have never used before.
And that was
Let's get to try it.
And that was with me. I had the wrong button pushed as well. So. So this is actually something that I will support. As I read the document, I thought, why isn't this 50,000? But it wasn't a hill to die on, or I didn't feel that I needed necessarily to bring it up. I could have easily lived with 40, but would have preferred 50. So since Councillor Bressie is making that motion for 50, I'll easily support it.
And Councillor Thiessen has put his hand up. So go ahead, Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Blackmore. I was actually waiting to see where Councillor Bressie was going with that. I'm in support of the 50,000 per organization per year. Similar to Councillor Bosch, what she said, it's all going to come to council. So if they come with a 50,000 ask, then and we want to reduce it to 40, then that's just simple subtraction. So I don't want to that might be adding community benefit to our city. So the bigger the pot, the bigger, hopefully, the outcome for the organization and the return on investment. So I'm in support of this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. There is no one else in the queue. Oh, there's Councillor Bressie again. It's like a bunny that just pops up.
Thank you, Mayor Blackmore. I would like to close on my motion and just to speak to it. I think that if councillors are open to considering up to $50,000, then you should vote for this motion. You shouldn't assume, hey, we can break the policy when it comes. And this is based on hard experience. I think this happened last term, not this term, but where we had an organization ask for, I remember one specific case where one organization asked for more than it was technically allowed to, and council granted that. And then, of course, every other organization that we granted money to said, well, we would have asked for that too if we would have known you could do that. And it wasn't a pretty PR mess to clean up, and I think some organizations felt that was unfair, and I get where they're coming from. So I really do respect people if they feel that 50,000 is too much, but if you feel you would consider 50,000 in the future, then please do vote yes to this motion.
Okay, I will call a question on the amendment. And Councillor Blackmore is in favor. And that does carry 5-2. Now, we're good? Now we will vote on the main motion as amended.
I in favor.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Blackmore is in favor. And that does carry. So we are now going to move on to meeting highlights. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much. Just get my screen a little bigger. That's a lot of words here, and I got to make them as big as I can. Chief of Staff Ms. McCracken presented the committee with an update on the current and projected activities plan throughout the service area. Executive Services strategy, productive conversations are occurring with the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital Health Foundation on healthcare professionals, appreciation events. The provincial budget release date has been confirmed for February 29th, and the city's annual and well-attended Evening with Grande Prairie event in Edmonton has been scheduled for that evening. Planning is now underway. City Clerk area administration is excited to be hosting the Northwestern Polytech Practicum student starting at the end of the month. This is a great opportunity to offer direct learning for students and value for the organization. Under corporate communication, seasonal communication supporting snow clearing kicked off January 9th with an announcement concerning parking bans on permanent snow routes, followed by the January 20th announcement concerning snow clearing kicking off in residential routes. Intergovernmental Affairs area inaugural Mid-Size Mayors Caucus Summit was a great opportunity to collaborate and learn from fellow mid-sized cities. Administration assisted GP local immigration partnerships in their advocacy efforts to have biometric scanning available in Grande Prairie. Administration is evaluating impacts on local government funding framework formula that has released late last year. Under Human Resources, administration is working with Bonnets to complete a live emergency response drill this quarter. The initiative will be explored at other buildings over the next year. And last but not least, corporate marketing. The brand refresh rollout is being planned for later in February. Ultravinetive will be supporting a new free community event happening in March at the Eastlink Center. And thank you very much. That's my report.
Thank you, Councillor O'Toole. We are going to move to Operations Services. Councillor Thiessen is online, but you can handle business, I believe. Councillor Thiessen?
I certainly can, Deputy Mayor Blackmore. And with that, I would move that Council approve the minutes of the Operational Services Committee meeting held January 23rd, 2024, as presented.
Thank you. That motion is in order. I see no one in the queue, so I will call the question. And Councillor Blackmore is in favor. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen, you have a service area update?
I certainly do, although most of our discussion at the committee meeting was largely based around our stormwater drainage bylaw. We're not making decisions on that now, but coming to February 12th council meeting, the approval of bylaw C-1443 would transition the city to a stormwater utility charge and moving us away from the present tax-based funding model to a utility funding model for user pay. I would like to also encourage all members of our community that between now and February 12th, residents and businesses can learn more by referring to information on the city's website at cityofgrandprairie.com/stormwater-utility. And additional information can be found on Engage GP. That's engage.cityofgp.com/stormwater-utility. And of course, you could also talk to people online at info@cityofgp.com. Go through the Access GP portal or phone 311 for more information. We're really looking for good community engagement, hopefully a good community understanding as to why Council is moving towards this system of user pay in regards to our stormwater system. And I encourage as many residents as possible who are watching today or over the next week to bring us their opinions, their ideas, and keep an open mind as to what this might do to benefit the community as a whole going forward. And besides that, not much else to report. So thank you very much, Deputy Chair Blackmore.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thiessen. Just a reminder that the stormwater engagement is actually information sharing and not further debate at this point. Councillor Bosch, I think, could you lead the next section which is protective services.
I can do that. I'm second in the list there. So since Councillor O'Connor has stepped away, I will look after this business. I move that Council adopt the minutes of the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held January 23rd as presented.
That motion is in order, and I'll call a question on it. Councillor Blackmore is in favor. That does carry. And Councillor Bosch, you had some business coming out of your meeting, if you want to look after that.
I do. Number one is the recreation and culture study that was done. And just to give some insight to this strategy was developed to ensure the provision of high quality recreation and culture programs, services, and infrastructure for residents and visitors, and to develop a future strategy for our residents. It has taken some time, and it is a very in-depth report on this study. Parts of it would be understanding the current state of where our recreation sits and our culture sits, moves into broader influences of what perhaps people would like to see in the future, and then, of course, engaging stakeholders as well and getting the public's perception on their needs. So that did come in, and I move that Council adopt the recreation and culture strategy as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Bosch. We have a couple of people in the queue. I'll start with Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Blackmore. One of the things that I just kind of wanted to highlight from this, it's been a long time coming, and culture is my business and very much my life. I had some great conversations around this during the civic election a couple of years back, so it was great to see this come forward and so many great ideas. One of the things that I want to flag, and not just have it one line in this report and lost forever, is around a performing arts space. So about 8 to 10, what it recommends in this is a plan for a new community performance arts space, identify potential locations, program, and preliminary costs for the future development. It goes on to say the feasibility study has been completed and it's a long-term 8 to 10-year plan. Back in 2010, we had a cultural master plan which first flagged the need or desire for a performing arts space. And then in 2017, as I just mentioned, a 134-page feasibility study came out. I read that report, and as I read it, I will concede everything was in alignment for our community to have one, except the funds. And I think part of that, honestly, is affected by COVID and how that's shaped things. So what I just kind of want my council members, I guess, to keep at the top of the mind, that if we take this at face value, we will not have a performing arts center for a full 25 years after one was identified that our city should be there. And I'm a guy that loves concerts. Previous to this, was in the music industry, and I love going to concerts. And there's none here. And I look at other communities our size, and they're getting regular shows that I would love to attend. So it's something that I want to keep on, a medium burner, not necessarily put it on the back burner to be forgotten. In 10 years, we have another report that says, hey, we need one in 10 years. So I just kind of wanted to flag that. A performing arts center would help us in the attraction of many different people, many different industries, professionals. I've had conversations with the hospital team, and when a doctor comes to town, his wife also has to come, and the kids have to come, and we've got the recreation amenities for the kids, but the cultural aspect isn't always there. It's also great for tourism as well, because if we build a proper performing arts center, it will be a community attraction. We will draw tourism. But also, if it's done well, I look at Edmonton and Calgary when they built their Jubilee auditoriums. Both of those buildings are 70 years old. One in Moose Jaw that I toured last year is over 100 years old. So it's not like these are disposable buildings. When they're done right, they last for generations. So rather than just have this sit on a line in a report that gets shoved to the back burner, I just kind of wanted to flag that as something that is important to me and many people in the community. So thank you.
I'm wondering, Councillor Berg, if you want to a follow-up motion subsequent to the one we're thinking about right now. Just if you want it to remain top of mind, you need to do something to make that happen. Councillor Plott, you're next in the queue.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. My question was about, and I appreciate the strategy. I think it's a long time in the making, and I do think this will get administration a good path moving forward for some goals. The one goal that hits me, and it was a conversation we just had at ICC last week, is the big plays, building community capacity, and it's also objective number 7. So if I can just ask for administration, when I read that, what I'm trying to understand is, what's our role going to be in further data collection? Are we actually putting boots on the ground? And it's when it's saying organizational capacity for these groups, because we can geofence facilities, we can do all that, but I really would like to just start knowing how many kids play soccer, how many kids play football, and really dial into the details. And I appreciate that's not administration's lane, but with this objective, I'm just wondering, is this, what steps does this trigger, and will funding be required to fulfill this objective?
Thank you, Councillor Plott. Ms. Bieberdorf has joined us, so please go ahead and tackle that question.
Yes, thank you. So currently, as we're collecting the data from the user groups, we have their members. So as the years go on, we'll see the trends of the memberships going up and down. The other area I would like to try to collect from them is what their registration is, because their members are one thing, but sometimes kids are coming back 3 or 4 times a year for programs, so that could also influence how they're growing. So that's another item on our list to try to collect when we get the membership lists as well.
Okay, so it's not necessarily going to need more organizational capacity, it's just more check marks on a box when we're filling out paperwork, sort of a?
Yeah, in the hope that we get the information back.
Okay, and that's I guess my concern when we say we're going to build organizational capacity. That's what I'm wondering, what reach we really have into that. Is there much we can do, or is it just hoping that these user groups will provide good data?
Yeah, thank you. So data's part of it, but the other part is also helping them develop as an organization. So it could be providing board development workshops or connecting them with the right resources like the Sport Connection, or volunteer services also is another one. So it's not necessarily just on the data side. There's other pieces that we're supporting them through as well.
Okay, thank you. And can I have one other one? Yes. Or do you want me to hop back in? So I'm more just for curiosity, but like there was some great data about our field usage, our ice usage, and our aquatics, how much that utilization is. But I didn't see anything about how well used the community reception center is or the Eastlink Center is as far as the field house side. Do we collect data on that to kind of know what our capacity limits are, what those facilities as well?
Thank you. Yes. So we do have that collected as part of our gyms, the study that we did for the Regional Recreation Committee. So we're tracking it through that way. Yep. And the Activity and Reception Center also is being tracked as well. And we're providing stats back to like our sponsors for our free drop-ins. And we've brought a few informal updates back to committee, but we could provide a more fulsome report on the Activity Center if.
Yeah, that'd be a motion that we could make at some point. But no, I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. Councillor Berg, you're back in the queue.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to, again, address, you'd mentioned possibly a motion. What I plan on doing, because I was on injured reserve and then out of town at a conference, I really wanted to talk to administration prior to me making any motions, and so I will be bringing it up at a future committee meeting.
Great, thank you. I see no one else in the queue, so we do have a motion on the floor, and I will call a question. Councillor Blackmore is in favor. That does carry. Councillor Thiessen, I saw your hand just pop up as I was calling the question. Did you want to make any? Did you want to add to anything?
I sure would like to. I was a little disappointed that Councillor Berg didn't make a motion, perhaps to add a performing arts centre to her advocacy list of priorities. Being born in Edmonton, I was well aware of when the Winspear Centre got its grant funding and then later created itself, I believe, in 1997, both in Edmonton and Calgary. That started with an investment of I believe it was $15 million from the Canadian government. The provincial government also chipped in some money. I'm not exactly 100% certain on that. I'd have to look it up. But I think if we're talking about advocacy priorities and the need for the community of Grande Prairie, I'd actually like to make a motion that we add a Performing Arts Centre to our list of advocacy priorities, period. That's the motion, fairly simple. And the reason being is I don't believe that we're actually going to break ground and create a facility to the dream of Councillor Berg and many other residents, myself included, for a Performing Arts Centre in the city of Grande Prairie without higher levels of government dollars invested into our community. Now, Grande Prairie is growing really, really fast, and our mayor's working very, very hard to stay connected inside of our provincial and federal channels. And I think that's a boon to us. And if it's top of mind for each member of council as we talk to our different ministers in art and culture, or even the premier, who's already engaging earlier in the summer with talks about creating a new arena in Calgary, I think Grande Prairie, being the future city of the North, probably would, see a great rise of attraction, not just in tourism or investment of community members coming when we create a facility such as this. But I don't think we're going to get it off the ground. So just for the sake of purposes of getting the motion on the table and moving this forward, again, I would move that we add a Performing Arts Centre to our list of advocacy priorities. And I look forward to what Councillor Berg might have to say about it at a future committee meeting or council meeting. Thank you.
So we do have a couple of people in the queue. I'm going to start with the city manager.
If I could offer a suggestion to council, we've spent a great deal of time in coming up with a coordinated advocacy effort, and we do have a once a month council committee of the whole where we do review current advocacy priorities and decide if we should add more or take some off. My recommendation would be for the motion today to bring this advocacy priority to the next council committee of the whole on February 14th for consideration as part of our whole advocacy strategy.
Councillor Thiessen, is that something you can accommodate in your motion?
100%. Yeah, that's essentially what I was leading towards, is just us having a discussion on that and getting it to those CCW meetings and seeing where it fits in. So thank you, Mr. City Manager, for that suggestion. My motion would accommodate that.
And Councillor Bressie?
Great. I'm just noticing that the wording's being changed in e-scribe. And if so, then I can support the motion because it really is just talking about this. But I also would highlight that I think we're a long way away from actually being able to advocate for this. I think that when we go and ask government, we need to have specific ask. And if we said, hey, fund a Performing Arts Centre, they're going to say, well, how big a Performing Arts Centre? How much money are you going to put in? How much money should we put in? What's it going to look like? What kind of groups are going to be there? And I think that if councillors want to start advocating for this, I could support that. I think that we've been really effective in advocacy, but we've never really, on my time on council, advocated for a specific infrastructure project that I can really remember, and a big one that really builds a community. And other communities have advocated for those projects. I've seen them be successful, and so I'd love us to figure out, hey, is this something we want to put advocacy work into? But I think right now, if that's something we're going to do, then we're spending time and resources building a business. Well, I shouldn't say building because there is one built. Dusting off and revalidating and potentially tweaking work that's been done in the past so we can have a very specific ask. So can support more conversation about this, but it's not about are we putting this on the advocacy list or not. It's do we want to do more work to get it on the advocacy list eventually.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Chair. I'm struggling with it being an advocacy priority. I'm fully in support of us having a conversation. I do think that that's important. We just went to a bunch of our sort in MCMC where Doug Griffith talked about one of the things, and it really hit home to me is it's great to talk about stuff, but if we're not going to put money to it, it doesn't matter. And so sometimes I do think we have to have that bigger, what does that conversation look like when it comes to budget? I mean, I guess I can support it today to get it to a conversation. I don't see it being an advocacy priority to me at this point, and much to what Councillor Bressie is saying is I don't know what we'd be advocating for. So I think it's a great thing for our community. I don't know if I think it's an advocacy priority, though. So I guess in the context of how this is worded, it's hard to support it because it's acting like a priority. I don't mind the conversation, but I wouldn't be in support of us making this an advocacy priority in the short term until we had a lot more information.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Blackmore. Yeah, I still feel that we do need some more conversation around it, which is why I was saying that I wanted to talk to our administrative team and bring it forward at a future meeting. I will support it because this will bring it forward at a future meeting, and that might buy me the time to have these conversations that I'd wanted. So it's something that I will support, and thank you, Councillor Thiessen.
Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much. I think we're a little premature on what our asks are right now. I think we need to, as a council and administration, sit down and have some good discussion and financing and all that other stuff that goes along with building a product. And so I'm not going to support this motion at this time. I think we can go ahead and have another meeting at another time and come out with some outcomes and a game plan. But right now, I just leave it right where it's at.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. I have no trouble with conversations. Does it need to be brought up as a motion now, or going to CCW is the path to go?
The city manager.
As we would interpret the motion as is, it would come up as an advocacy item. All of the questions that have been raised about what would we be advocating for would come up there. I know that Councillor Berg had mentioned that he also was thinking of bringing something more specific to a future committee meeting. So as the motion stands, it would come up as an advocacy item February 14th.
Okay, for me, I think as an advocacy item, I'd like to hold back on that. I think we have some very strong advocacy items that we need to address right now, such as the power transfer costs, healthcare, and the litany of different advocacy that we have on our plate at this point. I have no trouble talking about what we would like to see in the future. Absolutely. I think we have to be progressive that way. But as it stands now, I'd like to clean up some of our advocacy priorities first.
Councillor Thiessen, did you want to close on your motion?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blackmore. For those of you that are sitting on the fence, essentially what I'm saying is, hey, let's have a discussion here. Let's talk about it. CAO Berg said, hey, we can have this discussion at our CCW, and I think that's relevant. We've already done a lot of the legwork. In fact, we have an old rendition of what the Crystal Center would look like if we were to reimagine it. We have the Armand Montrose site, which also imagines what a performing arts center looks like, as well as former reports from other performing arts centers that council had asked about in years prior to. So a lot of the legwork's been done. As far as whether or not this is important enough to put on our advocacy list, well, I would argue that we have looked at the Bonnets Energy Center, and the age of the building, as sooner or later, we're going to have to replace it. And I'd rather start having those conversations 10, 15 years prior to, when we might be talking about demolition, so that we have something that's standing in its place. And advocacy for me isn't, hey, are we going to put this money in? Absolutely, if we're going to have an investment like this, we should put some money in. But I wouldn't be putting money down unless I had certain guarantees, like the cities of Edmonton and Calgary got back in the 90s when they were creating the Wind-Spirit Performing Arts Center for both of their communities, respectfully. So for me, I know we have some big advocacy priorities. One area that I think is lacking in what we are advocating for is something that is actually going to draw lots of professionals to our community, and that's arts and culture. And that's having another world-class facility that we might be able to build in conjunction with higher levels of government to create something truly meaningful for our community going forward. I think this is just essentially breaking the ground, putting that first shovel in and saying, hey, maybe we can go and actually achieve this besides just talking about it. We've already got the legwork there. And all I'm looking for is that discussion and conversation and see where it goes from there. So I hope everyone will support the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I will call a motion, and you can see it on the screen. There we go. So the motion is to direct administration to add Performing Arts Centre to the next Council Committee of the Whole meeting under advocacy priorities. And Councillor Blackmore is not in favour. That does carry 5-2. Councillor Bosch, you had some more business, I believe.
Okay. This one should be a little quicker. We're looking to just clean up some of the policies through some policy work here. And the first one is policy 207, the alcohol management policy. And essentially that is establishing the rules and responsibilities for user groups to occasionally apply for a liquor license for a private function in a city facility. And the majority of this policy essentially is just housekeeping and updates to event sites and just fixing the wording to, for instance, public and protective services area versus what area it was deemed under community services at one point. So am I missing anything, Ms. Beaverdorf?
Thank you, through the chair. The only other items were just some facilities have closed and some facilities have been renamed, so it was primarily housekeeping.
Housekeeping, okay. So I move that council approve the amendments to policy 207 being the alcohol management policy.
Thank you for the motion. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. I'm actually going to have a follow-up motion if this passes.
Okay. I see no one else in the queue, so I will call a question on the motion. And Councillor Blackmore is in favour. That motion does carry. So Councillor Bressie, go ahead.
Great, thank you. I'd like to move the council direct administration to bring a report to the appropriate standing committee about events requesting alcohol license at the Grande Prairie Museum. Open to wordsmithing there, but I'm curious how often we get asked to serve alcohol there. And the reason I'm asking, I've had two groups now, very far apart, but one recently, talk to me about, because of their own cultural beliefs and needs, they'd like to find a facility to host events where alcohol isn't ever present. And that's something that I don't know if we can provide to them right now. And so and that might be an appropriate venue to provide that kind of opportunity, especially because there's a room there that was created for smudging. So it's a little bit piece of information that I'd love to have is how often are we actually serving alcohol there? And it might be a change we want to make, but first I need some information to know if I want to advocate for that.
CA Oberg.
Can I offer a suggestion, just more for expediency and resourcing? Just request information that we could bring back a little bit faster than a full report.
I don't need a written report, verbal conversation's fine.
Information would be helpful to administration.
Sure, yeah, very happy to bring back. Yep, thank you for the advice, I appreciate that.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. Just some clarity for me. Any of our sites where potentially somebody could apply for a liquor license doesn't mean they have to. So if the museum did or didn't have that policy, would it be irrelevant to what you're asking for, Councillor Bressie?
Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, of course, any group hosting an event doesn't have to serve alcohol, but the challenge is there are some cultural beliefs where there's events they don't want to hold in a building that allows it, period, or that's had alcohol in the past X amount of time. I know for a really great example that I'm sure all of us have experienced is I'm sure we've all been invited to Indigenous events where we've been asked, hey, please refrain from having alcohol for 24 hours, 48 hours, however long before. And that happens in other cultures too. And so And again, I'm responding to a specific request I've had twice now in my time on council.
Thank you for the clarification.
I see no one else in the queue, so we'll call a question and maybe get it on the screen so we can give it a read. Okay, that motion is in order, so I'll call a question, and Councillor Blackmore is in favor. That motion does carry 7-0. Did you have further business, Councillor Bosch?
I do. I have one more policy. And this policy is what is the name? Public art policy. And basically the process of procurement, display, conservation, and ongoing maintenance for public artwork. And again, predominantly this is housekeeping changes to this policy. Is there anything else you want to add, Ms. Beaverdor?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Nope. Good. Okay. Then I will ask that, where did it go? Council approve amendments to policy 214 being a public art policy.
I have no one in the queue, so I will call a question. And Councillor Blackmore is in favor. And that carries 7-0. So Councillor Bosch, you have some meeting highlights for us?
Sure. I'll just be try to be quick since we took so much time with the rest of the other things. Chief Lemieux presented his report. Basically, the Grande Prairie Police Service administration was in Medicine Hat and Lethbridge reviewing dispatch centers, so moving forward with processes. Enforcement services were out identifying and addressing vehicles parked in snow routes. Perhaps that won't be an issue here shortly, with any luck. Community Knowledge Campus recently was very busy with the swim meet, volleyball tournaments, figure skating competitions, and just overall traffic. I was at Eastlink on Saturday volunteering for the Try It Day, and watching the amount of people coming into that building, it's extraordinary. It's like the staff at the front, I don't think they catch a break. It's fantastic to see how many people utilize that facility. That weekend, over 12,000 people came for events at the Community Knowledge Campus. And then January 1st, there was 6,484 Eastlink Center members, and as of January 1st, and 683 Grand Access Pass members, and 206 Recreation Access Pass members. So really nice to see people getting back out there now that things are returning to pre-pandemic levels. And then just a special comment to the Center of Creative Arts receiving their Provincial Historic Resource designation. And now that gives them the ability to apply for grants for historical designation. And then, of course, the cross-country ski trails have been groomed in South Bear Creek. So that's it for my report.
Thank you, Councillor Bosch. We're going to move on to Financial Administrative Services Committee, and I'm going to ask Councillor Plott to handle this.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I would make a motion that Council adopt the minutes of the Financial Administrative Services Committee held January 23 as presented.
That motion is in order. I'll call a question. Councillor Blackmore in favor. That motion carries. I don't think you have any business on to bring to Council.
Just some meeting highlights.
Perfect, thank you.
Fairly busy committee day that day, but ours was mostly just a service area update from Chief Whiteway. So assessment notices have been mailed out, and the deadline is set for appeal is April the 3rd. Please reach out to the taxation department directly if you have not received your assessment notice within the next few weeks. The tips reallocation letters have been mailed out as well to property owners on January 15th. So hopefully everybody's getting their tax notices, and if they have any issues, they can get a hold of us as soon as possible. That'd be great. Under Finance, our administration is working on the budget schedule for this year and continuing to work through the year-end processes for the audited financial statement. Under GIS and ITS, our administration continues to support the stormwater billing and expand on cybersecurity and new initiatives. The chamber upgrades are almost completed as well. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Palat. I move. Councillor O'Toole is studying French, so. The next item is 8.5, Invest GP Committee, and I'm going to ask Councillor Plott if he can handle that as well to make my life a little bit easier.
Betcha. So I'd make a motion that Council adopt the minutes of the Invest GP Committee held January 23 as presented.
That motion is in order, and I'll call a question. Councillor Blackmore is in favour. That motion does carry, and some meeting highlights from Invest GP. Councillor Plott.
You betcha, yeah. So Economic Development gave us an update that between January 1st and 14th, one new commercial business opened, one barrier-free grant was given. Under the recent renewal stream, 17 new employer applications and 42 candidate endorsements letters issued. And reminder that Growing the North will take place on February 20 to 22nd, so tickets are now available. Administration is currently working on an International Council of Shopping Centers conference. I believe a couple councillors was there, so I won't speak too much of that in case they're speaking it to the roundtable. And that's my report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Plott. We'll move on to item 10, which is Delegation Business. We had 3 delegates come to speak to us tonight all about the same subject, so I would ask Councillor Bosch if she wanted to handle that business.
I actually have a question to administration.
That's acceptable.
Okay, thank you. My question is, if somebody wanted to move that batting cage to the south side, can you remind us, I believe there was flooding issues somewhere on that site. Is that one of the reasons why it wasn't there to begin with?
Ms. Bieberdorf.
Thank you, through the chair. So the south side of the pitch, the area that was identified is actually too close to the main pitch. It would still be within the main area. And if you go any further south, there's issues with elevation because they would have to level out an area for the pitch. And then it would have elevation impacts on the drainage of the pond.
Okay. All right. I would like to make a motion at some point if people are done talking, just for information, because I struggle with this whole thing.
We do have Councillor Plott in the queue as well.
Similar question to this. When I was looking at the overhead map, it looks like there's the cul-de-sac that was there to the north of, or south of that. There's a green space and there's a path, and it looks like the cricket field. Is that green space that would be west of the cricket field city land as well, that we could look at moving it there?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, it is city land. The area that was identified by engineering is still quite close to the homes. So either way, they're both kind of similar distances to the homes that back onto that park.
Okay, I guess just looking at the map that the individual had in, it looked like between the storage facility and the most northern, I guess, or southern cul-de-sac, there was quite a big field in there. So is there not an option to put it in that field closer to the cricket field, but more south, like the proponents were saying? There's also the concern about the park, and the ball is actually going through that. And so I think if they were practicing and they were playing, at least they're playing it themselves in their own way. So I'm just wondering if there's not an option to move it on that other piece of land out on the cricket field to the west.
Thank you. That was the one I was just referring to, that to the west is of the main pitch. That's where you're speaking about, right? Yeah. So the location that was identified there would still be quite close to the homes. So it would also still have impacts on the noise and the potentially balls going into yards.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me. When I look at that map, it just seems like you could put it very far south and over in the quarter where it'd be hundreds of feet away from homes in any direction. And more by the storage facility. So maybe I'm just misunderstanding how big of an area this needs to me. But yeah, I guess if administration's looked at that, that's the option that I thought would be the best fit for it. But
I'm going to ask CAO Berg to answer that.
Just trying to assist council here. Well, would there be some benefit in administration bringing something back to committee with our scale drawings and our expertise, our experts on what the requirements are, in why we view that there are limited other locations, but we can bring some scale maps and experts to a future committee meeting.
Councillor Bosch, would that fit your?
Well, I'll tell you what I have, and that probably fits within there because I'm just going to broaden it a touch. I would like to move the administration investigate the potential of moving the batting cage to a different location in, I believe it's Trout Park, whatever the actual full name of it is. Hey, trout salmon?
Head and salmon.
Oh, it is salmon. Trout, salmon, jackfish. I don't know.
That's good.
And in saying that, maybe this isn't the location. What I struggle with is when someone comes in here and says, I have to have noise canceling headphones on in order to live at my residence. That's not okay. And so not only that, I don't know anybody who doesn't enjoy people using the park, kids, adults alike. But at some point, if there are, it's bigger than it potentially should be, as what the bylaw states. I think we have to look at it, and I'm hoping it's an easy fix, and we can just move within the site plan that is already there, and if not, perhaps look at something else. I don't want the cricket associations to not have a place. And I don't think any of the residents that came today want that either. It's just finding the happy medium between both.
Thank you, Councillor Bosch. Your motion is in order. I have a couple people in the queue, starting with Councillor Palat.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the motion. I guess for me, administration, for my mind, it would be nice to just see what it would look like if we put that pitch in the west, basically the very southeast corner of the parcel beside the pitch, and faced it north. And I mean, I think if you put the pitch way down there, these people are batting a long ways to get to a yard. They're not hitting it into a park. They're not hitting other stuff. And I agree with Councillor Bosch. Maybe we find out this location just doesn't work. Maybe we try it there and we realize that we have to go back to cricket and say, sorry, you're not going to have your field and your batting cage in the same location if it doesn't work. But the thought of putting a fence up by a park scares me. And when I think of where people can potentially hit, there's a road nearby. Like, there just seems to be a lot more obstacles on that spot of where they could potentially, if they were using it as a batting cage, to hit. So my preference would be to see it moved as well. But I think that'll come through the report.
And Councillor Bressy?
Great, thank you. I know that this isn't the first time that we've had this conversation. We've had a report coming. I'm really glad that the neighbors came in and shared more about what was going on, and that I know for me, even back then, I was very skeptical, and I expressed that about having that where it was. I was happy to support a fence if it's going to be there anyways, because it was better than nothing. But my mind would be way better to move it. That being said, I also think that if we're going to have this conversation, we should be talking about. We should also be pulling out the report we had administration do last year about completely different locations for a cricket pitch. I think as they're turning into something that actually hosts big events, that's an appropriate place for local teams to play. I don't think it's an appropriate place for regional and out of town scale events to be happening. Also note that I didn't make a motion at budget to fund that because we really had a tight budget to work with. My understanding is that, and I could be wrong on this, so I want to get more information on this too, but I think we've actually got more infrastructure funding than we budgeted for coming in this year. So there might be room, I don't know, but there might be room in the budget that didn't exist at budget time. So I definitely want to forward this conversation to the community, but I want to talk more than just where does that batting cage go? Is there a better place, period, for cricket to have a second home that actually can accommodate a batting cage and can accommodate the things they need as they grow?
Councillor Bosch, did you want to close?
I'll just say, basically, I think everything that was said here by the other councillors will be encompassed in that report coming forward, and we'll take a good long look at how we can make everybody's life a little bit easier, and that includes engagement. You know, I think these neighbors didn't necessarily know what was coming, and we have to do our part and engage the population base in and around a facility. So I hope you support this, and we'll find an answer for everyone.
Okay, thank you. I will call a question. Councillor Blackmore is in favor.
Bressie in favor.
And that motion does carry. So that will be coming to a future standing committee meeting. The only other thing left on our agenda is roundtable. And I'm going to start with Councillor Thiessen, as he is online, and gives him an opportunity to move on with his evening.
Well, thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Blackmore. I'm going to be fairly brief because I've only got about 5% battery left on my device. But over the last week, I was happy to spend the 2 weeks in Grande Prairie and fill it up heartily, not only with the strategic planning session that Council undertakes every year, where we think together, are we on the right track? Are we moving in different directions? How are we doing? The nice check-in. I think it was a great opportunity for us as Council once again to set the course for another year, and happy to participate in that. It's a little bit smaller this year. It's about a day and a half. Normally we go for about 3 days, but still good. The other things I'd like to talk about just on my other external committees, Youth Advisory Council had a meeting 2 weeks ago on Monday, the 15th. And they had presentations by our planning department around telecommunications towers, as well as women of influence. And I have to say, those youth that are we just added one more, they're very inquisitive, very bright, and very tenacious with their questioning. So I think we got a great group, a good leadership group of returning youth as well. And I look forward to Council getting to meet every one of them at our Youth Advisory Council dinner, which I believe is happening on February 5th. Besides that, all last week, I filled up a lot of my extra spaces with reading to kids in classrooms from kindergarten through grade 6. I believe I read to about 15 different classes. I like to thank all the schools for inviting me to that. And talk about a bucket of joy fill up when you can engage with kids and have them laughing and playing along with the books that you're reading and getting into the voices that you're making. Sure did put a smile on my face when I needed it the most. So a big thank you to those teachers. Also, a big thank you to the teachers at Alexander Forbes School for asking me to come in and teach them a little bit about municipal government inside their own classroom. I believe they'll be coming to City Council in the springtime, but this is a nice little primer for them to get ready to ask the big questions to whoever is going to guide them through City Hall in the spring. And that's my report. Thank you very much, Chair Blackmore. I'm going to sign off now, too. Have a good day, all.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Two things I'll report on quick is Councillor O'Toole and I got to attend a police commission meeting, and always impressed by Chief Lacusta. And every meeting it seems like he brings a new member of senior leadership who he just hired to, and I'm always impressed by the people he's hiring as well. So those are always encouraging meetings. A few quick updates is a kind of fun one. We got to see the mock-up of what the cars are going to look like. It's going to be some time until we get a actual police car on the road that's got all the modifications they need to do police work, but in the next couple months we'll see one with the wrap and the decaling that'll be used for community relations, recruitment, those types of things. So you'll see one on the streets in a couple months, which will be cool. We heard an update on the chief's assumption of command of enforcement services, mobile outreach program, and from his perspective, that that assuming of operational command has been going well. We received a presentation from the Canadian Mental Health Association. It really is. Our understanding of this commission is that Council expects us to do policing when dealing with non-dangerous mental health calls differently than it's typically done. And so hearing from CMHA was just an important part of us continuing to get educated about how to give the best possible governance to Canada's first fully modern police service. And the last thing I'll share is recruitment's obviously the biggest priority of the service. Recruiting enough people and recruiting enough quality people is a huge priority. To that end, there's going to be a presence in NWP. There's going to be a recruiting office that's going to be in NWP, which I think is exciting, that the community will have a more approachable and findable place to go and learn about potential careers. But the really encouraging report to me was the commission meeting was when recruitment for new officers had been open for less than 24 hours. And the chief reported that within that first 24 hours, he already had 18 applicants come through. And if you've taken the chance to look at the application process, it's not like signing up for a job where you can do an application in 15 minutes. It's quite the application process to get your word in for consideration. And so having that volume that quickly was really encouraging to me. And the chief also reported that he did just a really quick scan. Of course, you're not doing an actual vetting of people, but a really quick scan of what people submitted, and was quite impressed with the caliber it appears we're having people apply. And so really encouraging commission meeting that we got to attend.
That's great. Thank you. Councillor O'Toole.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just going to do my roundtable first. Strategic planning session was great. It was good to have somebody in there neutral and give us positive output on some decisions that we could be making. We also had the two MLAs representing the city and region, MLA Dick and MLA Wabe, and we spent an hour at council chambers discussing some priorities and some things that we want them to put a little bit of work into to make sure that we're noticed in Edmonton. Tomorrow is our Community Futures Dreamer Impact Lunch, and it starts at 11 o'clock and it goes till about 2. It's celebrating 38 years of community impact, and there's going to be a lot of individuals representing business, and they're going to be able to hear their story from the perspective and also perspective from the staff, board, and clients, and find out about the amazing initiatives that we have to go on. Once again, it's from 11 till 2 at the Teresa Sargent Hall. I was really looking forward to council showing up at that. And you have to have tickets, so if you need a ticket, you can phone. Go on www.eventbrite.ca and look up Community Futures, Dreamers and Doers. Thank you very much for my report.
Thank you, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'm just going to talk about Try It Day a little bit more. That was so fun watching the kids. My kids are all older now, so I don't get to see all those smiling faces when they're doing a sport. But I just want to make mention of a couple activities that typically we don't think about when we're looking at putting our kids into sports. Acro, archery, they had ninja gym, ninja warrior, parkour, taekwondo, trampoline and tumbling. They even had artistic swimming and mermaid, like just fun stuff. I saw scuba diving, just different interests for different people. And these kids, we'd have a little it'd be a quick conversation because they were on to the next activity. And, you know, some they knew right away they didn't like it and were willing to try something new. And others loved it. And now it'll be a parental conversation of which one you get to go to. So that was a great event, and they do it twice a year through Sport Connection. Really happy to see this activity and this day for all our youth. I did attend and that was the Sport Connection board meeting prior to that, so everybody getting ready for that. I did briefly attend the mixer at the Sandman through the Chamber of Commerce, and congratulations to them. I had to go to a different event, so I didn't get to stay as long as I would have liked. Many of us attended the ribbon cutting through the Chamber for the Indigenous Counseling Center, and really happy to see that open up in our community. It is a vital resource for so many people here, and happy to see it get off the ground. Again, the Council Strategic Planning check-in, that was really nice. And then, of course, attended the board meeting for the Storm Hockey Club. So they're doing pretty good this year. Happy to see the wins that they have. proud to say that we have a lot of participants that come in and watch their games. We can always use more. Remember that we can always use more in the seats. We have lots of room for you, great food and great entertainment. So that's my report.
Thank you. I'll move to Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blackmore. On Saturday, I attended the Peace Library System Executive, and quite simply, we just did a number of updating of bylaws and procedures. I didn't attend everything. I was on the injured reserve there for about 4 or 5 days, and then went off to a conference, and the conference was excellent. It was the International Conference for Shopping Centers, and essentially what it is restaurants, retailers, franchisees meeting up with developers. And very much I was a fly on the wall to hear their challenges and where they're finding successes. And when they complain about municipalities, I'm making notes to make sure that we are better than that, because again, we are always competing against other cities across North America. I did spark one conversation in one of the sessions on how developers can work with municipalities on utilizing vacant space for recreation facilities. So that was a great conversation. There may be something coming out of that going forward, again, across North America, but they're trying to fill their buildings and wondering how they could fill their buildings. And so I'd suggested recreation facilities might be something that they might want to partner with a number of municipalities so that we're not having to build the infrastructure. If the existing infrastructure is there, how can we partner to utilize that? I was just walking to the conference and heard somebody right behind me, turned around and struck up a conversation, and a gentleman asked where I was from, and I said Grande Prairie, and he said, "Oh, Taco Bell." And he represented Taco Bell in bringing that to Grande Prairie. He actually told me that this was the most successful Taco Bell launch in Canadian history. So when those types of things go around conferences like that, it speaks really well to our city. And when I pass that on to the Invest GP team that was there, they had a great presence, great booth. They'd actually said that conversation started at this conference 2 years ago. So it takes a while to see results when we attend some of these conferences, but we do see results. So congratulations to the Invest GP team.
And Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I had some of the similar events. The MLA meeting was great to sit down and talk about advocacy priorities for our region. The council strategic planning was a great review and an opportunity to discuss some of our priorities. Nice to see we haven't changed the goalposts that much as we've went along, so that was great. Had an ICC meeting. This is members of the City Council and County Council that get together. We talked about data collection on facilities, the potential use of Evergreen Park and Bose Center for court sports. So to Councillor Berg's comment, trying to best utilize these facilities. And we discussed the facilitator for the county and the city that we approved the funding for today. The airport meeting, which was chaired by Councillor Blackmore, was a fairly light agenda this time, but we did have the new public members join. And again, for the two committees that I'm on that have public members, the people that we've appointed on that committee were all very involved in the conversation right away and asking good questions. So I'm happy with our appointments there. And the highlight was the school reading. I did Riverstone, a couple schools there. And it's just so much fun reading those kids. It was not expected, but it started a little hug lineup with a bunch of kids. And the cutest highlight for me was one girl come back at the second time and said, "I didn't think I gave you a good enough hug the first time." So it was just it's always a fun process. The 5-6 split was a bit of a bonus because I was doing grade ones and they had a few more interesting questions in the grade ones. But yeah, it's always fun during Literacy Week, and I appreciate the teachers reaching out for that. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Plott. I'm just going to touch on a couple of things that I attended that have not been mentioned yet, or that I feel I could talk a little bit more about. First of all, I did my session of reading at Ivy Macklin School, reading to pre-kindergarten, 2 kindergarten classes, and I think 2 grade 1 classes. I let them pick the books, and I'm sure they knew them by heart because they read pretty much right along with me, even the littlest kids. So that was a lot of fun. They did not hold back. No, I did not. I would never do that. I also attended a ribbon cutting at North 43 Design. If you've been driving east on 100th Avenue or 99th Avenue, you might have noticed the black house with the big flowers painted on it between Nolan's Shoe Repair and the Elders Caring Shelter. That is North 43 Design. It's a company that was started here by a family who moved here from Prince George. And they moved here because they are interested in a community where people are willing to take chances and to push or swim upstream. And so they selected Grande Prairie specifically because we have that drive in our business community to really take on challenges. And so it was really interesting to hear them say that. The company is owned by Morgan Dunphy and her husband. The house is beautifully designed, renovation. She said it was built in 1955 and was last renovated in 1955. So you can imagine the changes that have taken place. So if you want to go by just to see the house, I would highly recommend it. It's a beautiful little place. I also attended a ribbon cutting at the Indigenous Counseling Center. They've actually been in Grande Prairie for a while. They moved into a much larger facility because they'd outgrown their previous space, which I think is always a great testament to success. They offer both in-person and virtual services, and they will also travel to surrounding communities. And when you're working with First Nations and Métis settlements, that's really important because often people who need help and counseling support simply don't have access to transportation. And so I was really pleased to hear that. They do provide individual counseling, adolescent and child therapy. They have support groups, family counseling. They do safe home study reports. So if you're looking to become a foster parent or you're looking to adopt, you'll need a safe home study, and they can do that for you. And so they're a very busy organization, and I really look forward to some of the interactions that this council is going to have with them in the future. I also attended the Regional Archives Council or board meeting on last Friday. They're moving, they're knee-deep in their renovation process to move into the basement at Center 2000. That basement space is going to give them an additional 5,000 square feet of space to run their organization in, which will be wonderful. When you think 5,000 square feet is it's like 2 family homes. That's a huge amount. So they're excited by that, but it is going to interrupt services a little bit. They will be closing the archives to the public on February 1st. Between February 1st and 19th, they're going to work on packing up some of their a lot of their unprocessed records. And on February 20th, they'll move those to Center 2000. That then frees up enough space for them to pack up the processed files that are in the vault. The current vault at the museum is very narrow and it doesn't allow for much movement, so they needed the extra space just to pack that up. They should be settled in and ready to open their doors again on May 1st, and they're working on developing an exciting little grand opening, which will probably take place just after May 1st. So I'm really looking forward to being able to attend that. I have to say that they've worked really hard to ensure that they have the necessary money in place, which they got all of their funding eventually, and so they are in good shape financially, and that is good news. With that concludes my report, and I think that concludes this council meeting. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.